Hello, everybody, and welcome to April's Book of the Month here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe, and today's book comes courtesy of author Daze Evander. Now, this is the first in a trilogy and deals with mental health, survival, and escaping a powerful planet that has its mind of three competing groups. Now, the story begins at a small town's waterfall as victims are forced to Eunoia, a planet with a mind, which carries must think of a way in which everyone can survive by the power of their minds despite many challenging conflicts. A color-coded curse threatens those who are untruthful and, as a result, are forced to kill one of their own to go back home. And forces of nature and a hidden stone reveal a different way to live. In part 1, Amira, Zekiel, Anon, Saige, Zayika, and Omar must choose to compete, communicate, and strategize to survive their most brutal battle. Now, confronting the past to save their future and get back to Earth, each is given magical abilities that reflect the most integral parts of their personalities, strengths, and mental weaknesses. The mind is powerful, but what happens when you have to escape it? So without further ado, let's dive right in to Chapter 1, Guilty by Association, following Amira. Present. You all need to step back. Can't you see this is a crime scene? My partner, Arcadia, shook her head in disbelief at the crowd of curious individuals who have been overstepping their boundaries. Get away from the area. People have a very difficult time minding their own business, I said in a hushed tone. Tightening my gloves, I watched her mind give them a quelling look. Mossy rocks surrounded the two of us as we apprehensively stood near one another. It was a frigid evening, and the atmosphere made me tense up with tightened muscles and a clenched jaw. Despite all my previous traveling, I hadn't yet been to a small town with the type of scenic views that this one had. When I received the call about the caves we were investigating, I was surprised that it was located at a layered waterfall near a neighborhood park and next to buildings that others lived in. I glanced at a couple of the windows for a brief moment and noticed that some people were staring back at me. A small chill scurried up my spine as I pushed my teeth against one another harder. Is something wrong? Arcadia asked me. No, just some faces watching us from there. I pointed to the glass where I was being observed, but she didn't look over to see. Don't worry about it. There will always be onlookers that refuse to get on with the rest of their day out of morbid curiosity when something like this happens. My eyes locked with someone else's in the shadow of a room. They were on the third story and wouldn't break eye contact as I stared. I felt on edge as I saw a grin spreading across her face. Where's the body? I asked Arcadia. Right over here. She responded, and the stranger who was looking at me shifted their gaze to the deceased victim behind us. They grinned again. Someone is smiling in our direction. I tried to warn my partner. Don't be so paranoid. People act weird here. They sort of have a reputation of odd behavior. I forced myself to look away and pay closer attention to the crime scene instead. I followed behind Arcadia as the sound of rushing water dominated my senses. Something's wrong. I couldn't help but think to myself, and the words started to repeat in my mind. I fumbled with the zipper on my outfit momentarily. Make sure you get clear photos. You look like you're shaking right now. Arcadia started to look around. Where's your camera? It's in my bag. I'll get it. I tried to snap out of my worried state. I walked towards the gear we had with us and got a hold of what I needed to take pictures. Something is wrong. I felt like I was being followed. I turned around and looked behind me, but no one was there. That's me. Alright, Amira, the victim is right here. Let's get some shots. I'll document the clues we have. Arcadia started to scribble notes down as I approached the body. 2 sets of footprints. I heard her mutter to herself as I crouched down next to her. I felt compelled to look up at the window again to see if the stranger was still staring at me, but when I did, they were gone. Although their presence was frightful, it seemed far worse to me that they were not visible in my line of sight anymore. Something is wrong. With a quick snap of a branch, Arcadia and I stood up quickly and attentively. "Who is there?" she called out, but was answered only with silence. I kept my mouth closed as I felt the hair on my arm stand up. A gust of wind whistled past me. No one should ever be near this area at all. She went back to taking notes. With the number of issues this town has had here, you would think they shut it down from the public completely. Wind started to pick up to speeds around 20 miles per hour as the day was rushing to a close. What do you think happened based on what we know? What other issues have there been? I asked her, finding it hard to evaluate the scene on my own. Think clearer. Get yourself together and make a good impression. She turned and looked at me and paused. I forgot that you just moved here. I'll fill you in a bit more. Well, we've had around 10 instances that have occurred near this waterfall in the last 2 years. Murders and people going missing seem to recur for some reason. It's as if something in this water poisons travelers when they get too close. In that case... A nasty fight broke out, and now the mess has to be cleaned up. My eyes drifted over to the dead body that were a few feet away from us. A fight. Yes, all clues point towards conflict between this man and another who managed to escape before the police arrived. Other visitors reported the two yelling, and the situation turned physical very quickly. That's awful. I didn't know what to say. It definitely is, Amira. The waterfall roared loudly as Arcadia knelt down by the deceased man with her notepad in hand. Strangulation. There was a foul smell in the air as the victim's body was lying in a pool of stagnant water. I looked into the camera's viewfinder and zoomed in. Thick bugs were crawling all over the man's face and into his mouth. I also noticed the tail end of something that was starting to push its way into his ear canal. I frowned as I took a snapshot with my right pointer finger. These were not the types of photos I dreamed of taking when I was growing up, but I accepted the career I had. Help solve mysteries, making Mom and Dad proud. You said that people had gone missing here in the past. Have any of them been found? I asked, forcing my voice to come out in a steady manner. What do you think? Arcadia's red bangs that framed her face stood out amongst the green shades of the moss behind her. They were never spotted after visiting this location. I decided not to continue asking questions and went back to taking my photos. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being stalked. Every small sound was setting off my intuition. Something is wrong. The wind was making it difficult to hear everything else that was going around near us. I looked back at one of the photos I had just taken of the victim and felt like my insides turned upside down when the man's eyes seemed to have been focused on the camera lens. That wouldn't make sense. I had taken the photo from the side, and he was on his back, with empty eyes pointing up at the sky. I needed to take a second to calm down. You overthinking this? Stay strong, do the job, and do it well. Stay collected. I stepped away from the caution tape and closer to the waterfall itself. It was only my second week in the job, and I was trying to hold my emotions inside myself until I got home. There was something about this case that seemed different from the others I had already worked on. My attention shifted towards the large trees that loomed over us and the power of the water as it rushed along fiercely. I was careful not to slip in on the damp soil as I walked near the side of the waterfall, stepping over wet and unsteady rocks to get a better view. Hey, be careful over there, I heard Arcadia shout out. I will be, I responded, though I don't think I spoke loud enough for her to hear me. There was a bright light that I saw shimmering near the waterfall. I think I found something, so I'm going to go check it out. She didn't respond as I continued towards the light that I assumed was my golden rays of the sun colliding against droplets. I steadied myself against a wall of rocks next to me, but found something out of the ordinary to see. Nothing. I felt my eyebrows furrow as I tried to find the source of the sparkle. I walked around the side of the waterfall and let out a deep sigh as I shook my head and turned around to look at the falling water that was now behind me. I knew that I needed to get my mind in the right place to work efficiently, to not be distracted or caught off guard by others. It was hard to not daydream. I found myself wanting to think back on memories I had in my previous line of work. Starting to shiver from the cold water nearby, I decided to step towards the pathway next to the crime scene. The trees that made a large circle around the area were being pulled around by the wind, which was beautiful, but paired with the melancholy atmosphere and tragic events that took place, they seemed to make me feel, uneasy. As I looked at the rows of trees before me, I noticed a sparkle appear again. I stepped towards it, and my entire body went cold as I was met with an unfamiliar and haunting face staring back at me from the darkness. A man with bizarre, shaky eyes smiled and stood still. "Who are you?" I stuttered. He lunged forward in a way that could not have been fully human and grabbed me by my neck tightly. I was startled by the amount of distance between us that he was somehow able to physically close with one jump. As I got a closer look at his face, I noticed that his eyes seemed as if they were buzzing with anticipation as he put his hand up to my neck. I tried to yell out for help, but couldn't, due to what seemed like an electrical current choking me. I yanked backwards, and I could feel small rocks and branches scraping against my back, legs, and arms as I was tugged along. My skin was being scratched open, and I couldn't get a proper breath of air. "Good luck getting back here," he grumbled quietly. All went dark around me as I passed out. When I finally awoke, I could still feel a stinging sensation around the base of my neck. I coughed, and I started to look around at where the man had taken me. As more moments passed, I realized I was lying down on the grass and lifted my head to survey my surroundings. I tried to look for anyone else close by, and it initially appeared I was alone. When I pushed myself up from the ground, I felt a sharp thumping in my head, which caused my visions to blur. I could only see endless amounts of hills over hills nearby, and when I looked behind me, I saw even more of them. I reached to grab my phone and only found an empty pocket, and my camera was gone. A rush of panic flew over my body as I desperately cried out for help. Echoes of my own scared voice was all I heard in return, and I began running. I ran down the first hill that I was on. My legs were moving so quickly that I almost fell several times. I kept going as I approached the next climb and went up the hill. Despite not having much energy left, I continued to push my efforts to get to the top. I was unable to find anything once I finally got there, since it was exactly like the one I had woken up on. The next hill was even higher, and I decided to force myself to get on top of it in hopes that I might be able to get a better view of my surroundings. I was sore, out of breath, and only halfway through making my way up the face of it when I almost let go. I doubted myself and my ability to make it. I let out a deep breath and told myself to keep pushing. Even if I accomplished nothing, I could still give it a try. 6 years before. "I swear you're one of the best additions to our team, Amira," that photographer boasted. "You have an eye for the world that no one else does. How long have you been doing photography?" "When I got my first camera from my parents at age 6, I loved taking photos ever since." "Wow, and you're 19 years old now. You've been doing photography for 13 years. That's incredible. Your practice really shows itself well in your work." "Thank you." Amira noticed the colors changing in the sky as the days were coming close. "We're about to hit the golden hour. We can get some great landscape shots just over that river." The team of 7 photographers grabbed their gear and set their cameras up ahead of them. I also always wanted to travel when I was younger, especially in high school. Now that I'm in college, this really is the perfect opportunity for me to pursue my dream. We are glad we award you this internship. You truly had one of the most creative perspectives on environmental shifts and seasons out of all the candidates who apply. You have an eye for observation, that's for sure. Thank you. I try my best to appreciate my surroundings. Tampering in journalism sounds fun too. Amira placed her tripod on the ground and adjusted her camera settings. "You're right. I don't remember you mentioning that in your application. It's sort of a new development. I feel a bit more introverted compared to extroverted, and I normally don't share much through words, although I like telling stories with photography. I feel as though I like to open up one day with words and maybe use them to portray the depth of the world that I see. Nature tells us a lot about itself silently. We just have to take the time to appreciate it, and then we will learn the message it's trying to convey." And with that, viewers and listeners, we will stop here. Now, there is quite a lot more in Chapter 1, but I think this is a perfect segue to end, or rather a segment to end. So with that, viewers and listeners, right now my review of Cares of Eunoia by Daze Evander, it's right now I wanted to give this a good, 4.5 out of 5. I mean, it's really good. I really do appreciate it. It definitely sets up the world, and I know that this is part of a more larger universe by Daze Evander, but I really do enjoy this story. This is a really good story. I'm really intrigued by, Daze's use of the word. I love how she is very descriptive, almost poetic in her word choice. And again, this is a really good read, and I cannot wait to continue reading this and give my full review once I finish this, as well as her other book. Which, speaking of which, if you want to check out more of Daze Evander, make sure to get The Shadow of Saltcrest, which I'll provide the link down below, as this will be another book that I'll be reading on the show. And until then, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as check out Daze's interview right here on the channel. Until next time, this is the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out, wishing you all a wonderful day.